Hi everyone, I'm your host Neha and you're tuned into Durian Dreaming, the show that brings you extraordinary stories from seemingly ordinary experiences in Indonesia's fast-paced market. Let's dive into today's conversation with another inspiring guest. Today we've got a guest who's not only making waves in the business world, but doing so with a twist that's as unique as the durian itself. Joining us is Oudeman, the founder and CEO of Grivy, a company that's proving you don't need venture capital to make it big. That's right, Jan has taken the road less traveled, building a profitable data company that transforms commerce-led personalization at scale. And he's done it all right here in the heart of Southeast Asia, while raising a family and embracing the adventures of life in Indonesia. Originally from the Netherlands, Jan now calls Indonesia home, and he's got some incredible insights on how to navigate the opportunities and challenges of this fast-paced market. So whether it's growing Grivy across multiple countries, being a member of the Forbes Technology Council, or simply exploring the best satay joints with his wife and 4 kids, Jan's story is packed with inspiration, ambition, and plenty of real talk. So whether you're a budding entrepreneur, a curious listener, or just someone who loves hearing about life on the business frontier, stick around. We're about to dig into Jan's journey, how he went from being a business engineer to leading a data revolution in Indonesia, and why he believes this is just the beginning. Hi Jan, welcome to Durian Dreaming. We're thrilled to have you here. So you first visited Indonesia in 2008, and now here we are in 2025. So could you share a bit about your journey, as in what initially brought you to Indonesia?
Yeah, I mean, it's interesting when I look back because I had lived in South Africa for a while and had many adventures. And when I came home and told my friends about all the crazy things and the adventures that I experienced by living abroad, nobody was really interested. So I told my girlfriend, who is now my wife back then, let's go somewhere else. Let's see, another part of the world where we had never been. And originally our plan was actually to go to New Zealand, and I was looking for an internship, wrote many letters, did not hear back anything. And then we looked at Indonesia, and as you know, the Netherlands has a long history with Indonesia. So we got really excited by the idea of, living in Asia. So my wife applied for, I think she did like 3 applications and for a job, and she got like offers from all 3 applications. I did like 60 or 70 applications for an internship, heard nothing back. So I got onto a plane and, went with my wife to Indonesia, and, eventually I did get my internship at a Dutch company called DSM. And that's kind of like how the Indonesia journey started. Yeah, we got really excited by the idea that, Asia, very foreign to us, right? As coming from a Western country, the plan was, 2 years. We did leave after 2 years. I wanted to do my MBA. So we went back to the Netherlands. But the reason why we came here was really, to experience other cultures. And, I think the other idea that we had in mind is to move as far away from the Netherlands as possible. I think that's why we initially chose New Zealand. Yeah. And what's interesting is that just before we left from the Netherlands to Indonesia, we were we just got married. We were married for, I think, 4 days or something. So maybe not the best idea, to get married and then move away very far. But that's a whole other story. Yeah.
And then how did Grivy happen? I read in my introductions that it's transforming commerce-led personalization. Can you explain this to someone who's probably a 5th grader? Like in simple words, what does Grivy stand for?
I'll share a little bit about how the business came to life and how we actually made a major change, because what we're doing today is very different from how we started. So in the Netherlands, we have this platform where you can participate in an online auction for leisure activities. So for example, hotels or concerts. You can place a bid, and if you happen to be the highest bidder, you win it for whatever price you put. Normally you'd pay for, let's say $60 for a concert ticket and you get it like for $5, right? So I was so enthusiastic about this platform that I thought, if I'm ever going to start a business, I'm going to start a platform like this. So when I went to Indonesia, we had like this website where you could, place bids, and, we had tickets from Java Jazz. Like normally they sell for about $100. So, 1.2 million, I think at the time. And we were like starting those auctions at, 10,000 rupiah, less than $1. So it went crazy. People got like super enthusiastic. We got a lot of like viral traffic to our platform. But one of the challenges that we faced was that people didn't really understand like the auction model. It didn't work because people would win an auction and then, start writing us like, where's my voucher? And, of course you first have to pay, right? It's not free. So we did that, and then we decided to kind of like, do something else, but the business wasn't really taking off. Then we went into restaurants promotions where, during off-peak hours, you could make like reservations. So off-peak hours, let's say 30 or 40% discount, peak hours only 10 or 5. It worked, we survived, but then, we were not able to generate traction. And then COVID happened, right? I was pretty much on my own. Like my investors were not picking up the phone anymore. New investors that I was talking to, they said, well, we have to support our own portfolio companies. I actually told my wife that, I think by Christmas we're back home in the Netherlands because there's no money, And she was like, well, you've never said anything like that. So it must be really serious. So, so we went back to the drawing table and we came up with Grivy, like what we are today. So what's Grivy? What's commerce-led personalization? When you go to the supermarket and, you buy a product from any of the brands, whether that's a Unilever or Coca-Cola or any of the brands, surprisingly, those brands, they serve, tens of millions of consumers, but they don't really know who their consumers are, right? It's the retailer that sits on the relationship. So when we started talking to the brands, like we got an introduction to Coca-Cola, and they said, okay, we want to do like a, sampling campaign. Can you guys help us? And that one campaign, kind of like became the turning point in our company's history, where we figured out, hey, this is actually a major problem. That's not just, Coca-Cola is not just facing this. It's all the FMCG, like the consumer goods companies that are facing this, right? So then we understood, okay, what's the value of data collection? How do you do this the right way, right? So you want to do it with privacy in mind. And ultimately, like there needs to be a certain objective that you want to achieve, right? Like, whether that is the recruitment of new consumers, understanding who's not buying your brand versus who's buying your brand. And that kind of like led to our category definition, so to say, which is, commerce-led personalization, where we believe that the best form of personalization can only happen if you know what people buy, because everything else up to that point, is an opinion, right? So basically what we're saying is that we help brands to personalize based on what people buy. And as a result, you can be relevant and do this at scale, right? Like you can have a very beautiful app and beautiful story, but if you can't do this at scale, then of course it's not going to be interesting for the type of clients that we talk to. Yeah.
It's a great story, and congratulations for where Grivy is today. So a few years ago, when you thought about Grivy, you already had an idea of how you wanted to enter this market, having seen similar platforms in the Netherlands? What were the initial challenges? Because this is not the country where either you were very comfortable with the language or the culture. So what were the challenges you faced?
I would say that actually the first 7 years were extremely challenging. Like we were just in survival mode. Like I would talk to investors and they would say, how long is your runway? And I knew that, you need to have at least 6 months, right? So they would ask me, how much do you have? I would typically have like 2 weeks, 3 weeks, 4 weeks, So I would give them a different answer. But yeah, I knew that this is not the way, it's not sustainable in the end. So one of the things that became very clear to me is that, okay, we don't have any money, so we can't do advertising. And if you don't advertise, then it will be very hard to, to attract users, right? So we went to the likes of like Telkomsel and we said, you have millions of users. We have great promotions from the clients that we work with. What if we, team up together So I'll give you access to the promotions that we have, and you give us access to your users. So suddenly we had like, Telkomsel, and then we had like Indosat, and we had like Excel. So that helped us to go back to our clients and say, hey, give us more business, because now we have all those users that are craving for, offers from the brands, right? So I would say, if I look back at Grivy, I think a major contribution of our success today is because we have those partnerships. And keep in mind that, um, if you are a venture-backed startup, you can advertise, right? But what we have is this ecosystem of, retailers, with the two largest retailers like Alfamart and Indomaret on the platform, and then all those telco platforms.
And how did you get your first client?
Well, that's another interesting story, I would say, because with many of the clients that we wanted to work with, they told me, Jan, we really like your story, but come back next year. And they would say that every year, but I think it was a journey of, perseverance and not giving up and trying to keep the relationship, not to become annoying. And, so I think eventually there were, some clients that said, okay, we're not convinced, but let's try this out. And if you deliver, then we'll give you the business. So I think it wasn't based on any historical performance that we had, but it was more like, okay, you keep trying, and we know that you will come back next year again. So, let's do something together.
Throughout this journey, did you ever feel, given that you were already married and had a family to support, that it might be better to put this on hold and find a job instead? Or did you even consider returning to the Netherlands? What kept you motivated and encouraged to keep pushing forward despite the challenges?
In the early days, it was actually, my wife supporting my business. So I'm forever grateful. I was like hiring, like the first two employees were from her salary, and like, are they doing what you're asking them to do? Because we were, not going out for dinner because we had to pay these two guys. So that's how it initially started. But yeah, what happened? We run out of money, and there was this lady from a church, who's a very wealthy lady, and she had said, I like what you do, like I like your business. Can I invest in your business? And I thought she was making a joke, so I never got back to her. But then when we run out of business, I thought, maybe I should give this lady a call and let's see. So so long story short, she invested together with a group of, her friends. So we got some money, and then, I met an investor, and he said, yeah, you're on the right track. This is what we're doing in China. You should, okay, grow even faster than you're currently doing. And I'm going to give you, I think he said like $2 or $3 million. So we accelerated everything, like our spending, hiring. In the end, it turned out he didn't invest. So, we kind of like, run out of money almost again. And I don't know if you can say it was begging, but like we were not in a good position to raise money, right? Because we had a business model that wasn't really working. And, I would go to some of the investor events, and, investors would talk to me and said, hey, what we really like about you, that your company never dies. So I'm still wondering whether that's a compliment or whether that's something else. But yeah, that's kind of like where we were at. And then, I made this promise to myself, okay, you have to build, a sustainable business that can take care of itself, something that is profitable, that makes sense, and is actually, driving value. And that's how when we did this, major pivots into what we are today, like, the aim was to become a profitable company. Whether investors want to invest or they don't want to invest, we're not limited by that, right? So now if we get the question, like, how much is your runway? Well, if you're a profitable company, your runway is forever there, right? Of course, you can grow faster when you raise money from venture capital, but on the other hand, you're no longer in, a beggar position, so to say. You become more like a chooser or, a negotiator.
Wow, you've definitely been through a wild ride. It's awesome how you've pushed through all those challenges and built a business that's now holding its own. So, most startups here we see have a co founder, maybe a local partner. Does Grivy have one?
So, just before I started Grivy, I had a coffee business. So we were like sourcing beans from one of the largest coffee bean importer in the Netherlands. And so we were selling premium beans. Nobody wanted to buy them except my family and my friends. Every time like we got an order, it's like, oh, we have another order about your sister or it's your mother. So, but back to your question, like it's like my co-founder and I, both of us were like kind of like the CEO, and you cannot have two captains on one ship, right? So eventually we decided, to end the company. We were actually able to sell it, so we got our money back. But I think that was the reason for me that, I want to do something. I don't want to, because we had, a bit of disagreements from time to time, and I just wanted to, execute the vision that I had in mind, and maybe not be answerable to anyone.
So, from a compliance or business setup perspective in Indonesia, is having a local partner a requirement? I'm asking this because many listeners of this podcast may be considering starting their own business here. So, how important or beneficial is it to have a local co founder in the process?
I think it can help, right? I think statistically it's proven that, those with two or more co-founders have a higher chance of succeeding. So starting a business in Indonesia, there are some industries or sectors where foreigners can have 100% ownership. So that's how we started, right? It was just me in the beginning. Later on, we got, some investors. So we have local shareholders, we have a local, chairman. So that's all set. But so some sectors you can have 100% ownership.
Now, over these 15 years, and as you mentioned, you've seen a lot has changed in Indonesia. So from the tech standpoint, from the AI standpoint, what do you think has evolved or changed?
I mean, the biggest evolvement that I've seen is the internet. Like when I arrived in Indonesia, I was like with my dongle on the roof of my house, like searching like where is the signal. And I was like moving it like from time to time, like 1 millimeter to the left, would maybe help a little bit. Right now I'm on a Starlink connection and it's just amazing. Like it's, so going from this little dongle, to something that works, cable internet to Starlink, I think that's an evolution in itself. Back in the days when I arrived in Indonesia, there was no e-commerce. Like you couldn't buy anything online. So you had to travel I lived in South Jakarta, so all the way from South Jakarta to North Jakarta. And there was like this shopping mall where you could buy like your electronics and stuff. So, versus, today you order something and the next day, or sometimes, within the next hour, right? It's at your doorstep. So, I think the adoption of digital, I think is massive. And I think it's still growing very fast in Indonesia. So I would say that, I think the industry that we are in, I think it's still quite early. Like, especially if we talk about local companies, I think they're yet to, believe in the power of data and technology. But overall, I would say that, if you look at how the industry is evolving, like digital data, media, massive change from what it was before. Yeah.
And do you see these innovations as a threat to Grivy?
So in the early days, I used to believe that, okay, I should be careful talking to this telco company because maybe they're going to copy what we do. Or, when we do a presentation, maybe we should take out some slides because maybe it gives them great ideas they're going to steal. But, now when I look back, it's not like that, right? Like you can have an idea, but in the end, it's all about the execution. It's how you execute on your ideas, right? So stealing ideas, I think it's good to have competition, right? That validates that, you're working on the right things. But if the question is, am I afraid of someone stealing? No, I don't think that's not something that keeps me awake at night.
And any threat from the AI these days that you feel that what Grivy does can be copied easily?
I think for us, it's a great opportunity. Like we've started implementing AI across the entire organization. And if you see the gains, like you see it happening in front of your eyes, like something that would typically take like a day or maybe 2 days. It's just coming out like in a few minutes. It's like, wow, this is incredible. And for us, given that there is a huge focus on personalization, you can now personalize based on whatever data points you have. And, to give you a simple example, like, a picture or a key visual with a red background might resonate better with you than with me, right? And that's only something you can find out if you're able to show all of those different experiences with the use of AI. So we are very excited about it. I don't think it's a hype. I think it's the next big thing. And even like something very simple, like from a productivity gain, it's just mind blowing.
Wow. And what's been the most challenging project at Grivy?
So we've expanded to Thailand and Vietnam and Malaysia happening early next year. I think for us the biggest challenge is, yes, we have a playbook. We know what to do. Like, you can't just replicate your Indonesia playbook, let's say, to Thailand. So I think these are some of the challenges that we're currently facing, right? So how do we truly localize it? Because, yeah, you might say Southeast Asia, but each country has its own nuances and its own culture. So that has been challenging.
Okay. So Grivy started in Indonesia and it's now expanding into Thailand, Malaysia, and Vietnam. So, like you said, that while they all are a part of Southeast Asia, but they're still very unique and diversified. They have their own cultural nuances. So, for a startup out of these three markets, which one do you think would be easy to get in?
I would say none of that.
Okay, so that brings to our next question. What was the turning point where you thought that now Grivy is ready to expand into other markets?
Yeah, that's an interesting question. I think we from Grivy thought we were not ready, but it's our clients that told us, we think you're ready. And if you're not ready, we'll help you, to counter those challenges. And I think that's really the best thing that can happen to you, right? Like, if one of your clients comes to you and say, hey, we really like what you guys are doing here. Can we export this to other countries? And we're going to help you. I mean, that's, I think, the dream of every entrepreneur. So, and that's exactly what's happening. Like, that's also how we expand to those countries. We're not going in alone. We're basically, capitalizing on existing relationships, existing architectures and things that are already in those markets, rather than really, really starting from scratch.
And did you ever have that fear that, you expanded because you had a client who trusted you guys? But did you ever think that if I'm not able to replicate Indonesia model to say Thailand or Vietnam, I will even lose this current client? Was there a fear of failing?
I think the fear that I had was, if we are not there, then, our lunch is probably going to be eaten by somebody else, right? So now we're there, right? Now we can do something about it. So, yeah, I think that was the part that probably kept me awake at night, is what if someone in those markets, establishes market leadership, like, then it will be very hard for us to get in. And all of those markets are new. So I think that was the greatest opportunity, but also the greatest fear, I would say, for us, not being able to be there when, we had to be there.
Okay. So if so, can I say the takeaway from this for a startup guys would be that try to get a confirmed client first before you look at expanding into other markets?
Yeah, I mean, I think it also depends on, the company. Like, if you have very deep pockets, yeah, maybe you can go and, establish an office and, really do everything from scratch. But like, we're a bootstrap business, right? So we would have to think like 5 times before we spend our dollars. And I think it's a good practice, and we will continue to do that even if we, raise, capital in the future. But yeah, otherwise I think it will be very challenging to expand to any other country, like not just whether that's Southeast Asia, but I think that holds true for any country or any continent.
So beyond your professional life, which of course is very demanding, and given that Grivy is expanding, how do you balance your family life with your professional life? Plus, I understand that you're very active in community services as well. How do you balance all of that?
Yeah, I mean it's interesting because every time I think I cannot get more busy, it gets more busy. But one of the things that I've been doing actually since quite a long time is that if you don't have enough hours in the day, then the only thing you can do is to wake up earlier, right? That's the only way you'll be able to get more hours. So I wake up very early, wake up at 5 a.m. Every day. Read from the Bible, meditate, spend time with the kids, go for a run on the beach. And by the time I have started my work, most people in Jakarta are still asleep. And that really is a great feeling because, by the time I'm fully up and running, I've moved my big rocks. In the early days, I used to think that, there's always more work than you can do, right? So I was behind my computer until very late at night. I mean, those things I don't do anymore. So I don't work beyond 8 p.m. I typically try to finish maybe at 7 or 8. And, really focus on the things that matter, like reading a book or, spending time with the family. Yeah.
Is there any book that has deeply influenced you?
So I recently read a book like 10x is easier than 2x. And that is an eye opener, I can tell you. Like it talks about, the 80%, like the 20% that contributes like 80% of, the outcomes, and the other 80% of where you spend your time on that only produce 20%, right? So it talks about reviewing the 80% that it's producing only a little, right? And can you get rid of those things? Can you delegate those things? Can you stop doing those things? And see like what are the things that actually drive, from 20% that drive 80%, how you can get more of those, right? So that's something that I've been applying. So I would definitely recommend that book to anyone.
Okay. So you had been living in Jakarta and recently you moved to Bali. Why the move? I mean, given that most of your big clients are here in Jakarta.
Yeah, so I've been living in Jakarta for 12 years. So 2 years and then another 10 years. And I have 3 kids. Number 4 is on the way. And
Congratulations.
Thank you. So like from a family perspective, like I would say I have sacrificed quite a bit, for the business. And after COVID, like we went on a road trip from Jakarta to Bali, and we saw a very different Bali, a very beautiful Bali, a very untouched part of Bali. And, my wife said jokingly, maybe we should go and live here. And that became a reality. So moved to Bali like 2 years ago. We live somewhere like literally like in the jungle, far away from any tourist places. Actually, most of our team members are still working from home. And that is seen as a big privilege. Like, we have people working in, Papua and in Sumatra and in India and, all over the place. And they really seem to enjoy it.
Wow, this has been quite a journey, especially with challenges like COVID along the way. I mean, you've brought Grivy so far already. Tell me what truly excites you about the future of Grivy. What are you most looking forward to?
What I really get excited about is that it's the moments of delight. And what I mean with that is there is so much noise out there. Like you open up your Facebook and you start scrolling. There's so much noise out there that it's very difficult for brands to stand out, right? And if you get personalization right, like the opposite is if you don't get it right, it's perceived as spam, right? But if you get it right and you're actually able to be relevant and unlock those, delightful experiences for consumers, that's something that I get very excited about. And I think that's where we are moving towards. And you might say, okay, is that what you get excited about? But I know where we're coming from. Like we started from sending out, emails without any segmentation whatsoever. And from where we are today, that is really exciting.
And how long do you see this runway like? Are you guys looking to settle in here permanently, or there could be expansion beyond Southeast Asia?
I mean, I just got my investors hit up. That means I can take a bank loan if I want to. I have my scooter driving license, and I have a Indonesian car driving license without paying the police, so that's something we're really proud of. Yeah, so Indonesia, I mean, we love the country. Like even my daughter that we adopted is Indonesian, right? So that's, I think, the closeness of the bond that we have with Indonesia. But for us, yeah, I mean, it's very exciting to be here. But actually, maybe in the next few years, our next big dream is to move to the United States, right? And whether that's Grivy or whether that's something else, it's undecided. But that would mean that at least, the business would be able to operate and, without me directly being involved. So that's what I'm working towards.
This is fantastic. Lastly, any message, Jan, that you would like to leave for our listeners who are aspiring to be leading or innovating in Indonesia's tech space?
Yeah, I think my message would be for your Indonesian audience. That's, if a foreigner, a bule from the other side of the world that doesn't speak the language, I mean, I speak it a little bit, but definitely I don't speak it fluently. If he can make something work in Indonesia, then all the more you should try to do something, right? Because you have so many more advantages like networks, your language, your understanding of local culture than someone that, comes from somewhere else, right? So I would encourage, Indonesians to start their own business and to really take advantage of the many opportunities that, this country has to offer.
Wow. Thank you, Jan, for sharing your incredible journey with us today. This has been a very exciting chat, and your story of perseverance, innovation, and commitment to growth has truly inspired our listeners. We wish you and Grivy continued success. Thanks once again. And that's a wrap for this episode of Durian Dreaming. I hope today's discussion sparked some new ideas for you. Don't forget to subscribe, share your thoughts, and stay tuned for more exciting stories. Until next time, keep dreaming big.